Looking pretty good in that. What is that? Hustle mode? Is that a Gary Vee shirt?
I have no idea. I just bought it. I was like, you know
Well,
what?
you can steal a shirt. I'll steal his background. Is that fair?
That's fair. You go with that.
I need to get a bunch of shirts that say "Get Schlossed." I think that's what we really need. Can we,
That's the next
guys?
step.
Can we get that trending, please, on Twitter? Get Schlossed for David Schloss here. I think that's what we need to do. I'm really excited for this masterclass because I've been trying to get you on here for like 6 months, I feel like. And finally, your schedule's opened up. You've been doing so much, I don't know, PR, podcasts, speaking in conferences. I feel like you're in an airport more than you're at home.
That's what it's felt like for 3 years now. Yeah. Definitely.
God, it's been a crazy ride. So look, guys, I want to kind of jump here into the masterclass for you. Super excited to bring on David Schloss. He is, a mentor of Austin Troyer and I, who now run our traffic. We brought on David because, there's nobody that we would trust more to do our traffic than him. He is currently is managing $2.5 million in ad spend a month. On top of that, he's been recognized by Entrepreneur and Forbes and all these other publications as being one of the most rising digital marketers in the game. So excited for you to share how to grow an agency to 7 figures.
Yep. So it's the process that I took to grow my business from that 6 to 7 figure mark. I'll even talk about how I got to the 6 figure mark, right? First, and then how we got to 7 figures, but also, the tools that we utilize in the business, how we went about systemizing a lot of the different processes that we incorporate in the business to this day, and how we even go about finding qualified talent for what it is that we do.
I do want to start with your story. Like, how'd you get up to this point? And then we can start diving into some of the specifics. So, like, where'd you come from?
Sure. So, hi, everybody. So, my name is David Schloss, born and raised in Miami, Florida. Started in business about 10.5 years ago. I started when I was in college at 18 years old. Didn't have an agency at the time. It was more of just a sole proprietor looking to build affiliate sites and make some money. I was 18 and broke. I needed to pay for college at the time. Went to the University of Florida. Couldn't supplement that money to pay for my car, my rent, and all sorts of things. And so I was finding all sorts of, different tactics and strategies to learn online via a random web search of how do I make money online, led me down this massive rabbit hole of learning video marketing, SEO. Facebook ads wasn't even around yet. So it was more of just traditional PPC, right? And so for the first 3 years of being in business, I was essentially building mini sites for people and doing any sort of like affiliate SEO, affiliate video marketing, selling other people's stuff. And I would get paid to actually create sites like that for other people, along with doing it for myself. Now, I didn't take it to the extreme like a lot of other people did back then, where they'd have 200, 300, 400 websites making, even if it was $1 a day, you're making $200 to $400 a day, right? But you're having hosting and domain buys and all these other things. I was just doing enough to get by, right? But for 3 years in that initial phase of building a business, I was really just trying to learn all the tactics I possibly could to then turn it into a business and feel proficient enough in them to then sell as a service, right? So at first, I was doing SEO and video marketing. And when I felt comfortable enough with going to people at that age saying, give me money for X, which at the time being 18 or even up to 21 saying, can I get $1,000 to run your SEO campaigns? It was difficult. Like, people just did not trust me at all. They're like, who's this young gun? Doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just trying to get by, but I don't trust him with my money, right? So it was tough in the beginning. But I built up a strong enough muscle to accept rejection, right? Which is why I started the agency in the first place. I'm like, how can we legitimize this a little more and put myself out there in a sense where I am the authority at this subject. Now, at the time, I didn't really truly believe in myself to the point where I am today, where I feel like I'm one of the best in the world at what I do, but it was enough for me to get things rolling, right? So from the age of 21 up until about 25 years old, I was basically doing SEO and video marketing. I sprinkled in social advertising as it became more prominent, right? So when Facebook decided to launch its ad platform, I jumped in immediately, especially in the fact that I got in when they were still in like this little beta phase where they were only accepting specific advertisers. I somehow managed to get in because I had a buddy who was able to get in. So he helped me get in when they were only accepting major companies or, companies that had sort of like invite codes to get in, right? And so after jumping into Facebook and seeing it's the wild, wild west, Twitter came out with their own platform. YouTube and AdWords were really just starting to integrate together. At one point, they were completely separate networks. And even LinkedIn was jumping into that game as well. So everything was new in that social advertising landscape. So I was balancing between, do I go all in with social or do I continue doing the SEO and video marketing game? And it wasn't until about 4 to 5 years ago that I just decided, you know what, I'm going all in with social, nothing else. No SEO, no video marketing, no design, no nothing. I'm not a full-scale agency. I'm a social advertising agency. That's all I do. I just decided.
Why did you find it necessary to niche down like that instead of being a generalist?
At the time, SEO and video marketing were going through the massive shift of all these different updates with Google, like massive updates. We're talking one day your page one, next day your business is gone, right? They were just going through these huge updates, and it was too much of a stress on me to wake up one day wondering if my clients' businesses were completely ghost in the Google search results. I just didn't want to deal with that anymore because you would be doing all this work and then it could be gone. It could be gone within a day, a week, a month, or even a year. And, thankfully that didn't happen to any of the businesses I did the work for, but I just didn't want that stress anymore. I just didn't want to deal with it. And so the one thing that actually pushed me over the edge to go all social was my mentor at the time verbatim said, look, David, SEO is going through a transition. Video is going through a transition. Social and paid ads in the way it is right now is not changing. People are always going to want an instant result. They're going to want to see that you spent $1 and you made 2 back. That's not going to change at all. So why not just pivot your attention to an industry that is evolving with platforms, but it's not evolving in how it's operated? Because then you can get very good at what you do and then just go and keep making sales and just running campaigns. And he broke it down for me in a sense where it's like, here's how many clients you need to make 10K a month. This is what you would charge. Here's the budget you can take care of. Like, it was very systematic for me to understand, right? You could do all the math. You could see it column by column, and it just made sense. And it actually showed me that I could make way more doing that than doing what I was doing before. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people out there who do SEO, video marketing, and all that and make 7 and 8 figures, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So when he gave me that breakdown and showed me what was possible, it just excited me. Not to mention, I liked the fact that I could turn something on today and tomorrow I can get you someone buying your product. That was way more exciting to me than I'm building links, I'm getting you guest posts, I'm doing outreach, and then you might have a result 3 to 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
So
now I know this question is going to be specifically for some of the guys that are newer, but when you first got started, how did you land your first client?
So my first client was actually someone who went from my SEO service to the paid advertising service.
Okay.
So I called all of my clients at the time, which I only had 7 before I did the full transition. Called all 7. And I said, look, SEO and video marketing is no longer going to be a service of mine. We're transitioning over into doing paid ads, specifically with Facebook at the time, just Facebook. And I said, look, if you don't want to be a part of that transition, I understand. We'll fulfill the agreement. No charge. We'll just fulfill the agreement. And then after this, it's over. Like, we're just going to move over and you can go find a different provider. If you'd like to transition into having us run your ads, we'll keep you at the same cost. We wanted to keep everyone at the same cost they were used to paying, just to have them roll over and we could run small campaigns to see what happens for them. And if it didn't work out, so be it. It's okay. But for the ones who are paying us, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month for SEO, we definitely wanted to transition them over because we knew they could afford it. And it gave us at least a bigger baseline in terms of ad management to start with and keep the business running. Now, at the time, I had a
strategy. They say it's easier to sell. It's like 7 times easier to sell your current customers than it is a new customer, right?
Yeah.
That's actually how I got my first Facebook ads client as well. Is he was an old website that I had built, and I came in and said, "Hey, look. Obviously, your website right now is an expense. I can turn it into an asset if we run the right kind of traffic towards it, and make it an actual online business rather than they have an online profile or an online space of the internet, which is really powerful. If any of you guys know or have ever worked with a business in the past, even if it's not digital marketing related, you could, use that connection, say, hey, look, you've enjoyed working with me in the past. You're going to get the same level of experience with me now working with me in the future if Facebook advertising is something that you'd like to begin getting into.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
okay,
So
you went on from that first client, and today you're managing 2.5 million a month, which is wild. I don't know if I've ever heard of one person or one company in our space building an agency that big. Rohan Sheth is close. I don't know if he's at 2.5 million a month. This is ad spend management, correct? Between all your clients.
I just call it ad spend under management. Yeah, it's how much we are spending every month.
Okay. Cool. So how'd you get there? And it's been how long since you had that very first client did you get to this point?
So we had that transition about 4 years ago. I would say it's truly 4 years ago because that was when my business had a massive crash. We had to figure out what we were going to do next. This is when I made that decision to go all in with social, right? 5 years ago, we were playing with it. 4 years ago, we didn't have a choice. It's like, all right, we're going to do this. And so 4 years ago was when I made that phone call. I said, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. 7 phone calls. One person said, let's keep this going. So the whole business went from making 10, 12 grand a month, not much, but hey, 20 something years old out of college, didn't have to get a job really. I had a job for a while just to supplement some money, but it wasn't full time. I was like, oh, hey, I'm doing pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But then have all that disappear in as little as about 3 months and then start over.
Man, how did that feel? That had to suck. You built up this thing and now it's all gone. We probably all experienced it if you built an agency. I've had some really big clients leave. There's this one client I had at $5,000 a month, which was most of my agency. I was probably making 10 grand a month. And so he was half of my business. And for him to leave was a big, hit in the gut. How did that feel for you, man?
It was pretty bad. Cause I also had a partner at the time. So take all that money, right? Let's just say it's 12 grand, take out some expenses. Let's just say it's 2 grand. And then you cut that in half. So imagine you're left with just one client. You take out a little bit for expenses, then cut that in half. I barely even cracked $1,000 a month after that. And that was what I was keeping. Might I add, my bills were about 3-ish grand a month at the time. So imagine being that far in the hole, trying to figure out what you're going to do next. Now, of course, the next plan of action for most people is just go sell your ass off. Just go get as many clients as you can. I was going through a pivot. I had to transition the whole business, change the service offerings, get new systems in place, and then make phone calls, and then try to get people to allow me to run their paid traffic when I had a very little pool of people who allowed me to even run ads for them and showcase the results. And so I had a basically 9 to 10 month period where my business was just in this flatline state. It was stable, but in a state of stability from a bad standpoint. It wasn't making anything. We just kept hitting this point of no return. I can't get a client to sign. I don't understand what's going on. None of my clients in the past wanted to jump on board. And what I really found out was, well, first I had to tell my partner, I can't do this with you anymore. And it was weird at first because I'm like, I can't believe I'm breaking off from one, the person who supported the idea of creating an agency together, but also the same guy who basically allowed me to go all in with this because he still kept the job on the side for himself, but I went all in with this and he supported that whole thing and, we made it work. But it was at that moment I realized I have to do this for me. I have to take care of me first. And if I can't take care of me, how could I take care of anyone else? And so during that 10-month downfall.
I love that phrase. I think it's a really important lesson a lot of people overlook, because they're such giving. They want to help out so many other people. But it's like being on the airplane. Who should you put the oxygen mask on first, yourself or the person next to you? It's yourself, so you can help others get their mask on.
Yeah. And it wasn't just me I had to take care of too. I'm still living with my girlfriend now. So she was living with me then, supporting that vision of I'm going to build this agency. I'm going to make it a big agency. We're going to make things happen. We're going to get results for people and we're going to create freedom for ourselves and others, right? That was the vision and it wasn't coming to life at the time. So imagine I can't take care of myself, can't take care of her. I'm near eviction in an apartment. My car is almost repossessed. I can't afford paying any bills. That's where I was at October of 2013, basically 2013 into 2014. Couldn't figure anything out. Nothing. Now, that was when I had to make that decision of, okay, you have to go all in with this. What do you want to be known for the most? Do you want to be a Facebook person, Twitter, YouTube? Like, I had to pick a direction. I decided on Facebook because it was the place where I had the most connections. It was also the platform that I understood the most. Like, I was really into it. You know this from our conversations. I live on that platform.
Yeah,
I'm in all the time. And so I had to make that decision. And what really allowed me to get out of that hole into where the business is today, this is really the turning point. I hit up every person on my friends list at the time. I had about 750 friends. I sent a message to everybody over time. This is when Facebook didn't, send you a slap on the wrist if you sent 100 messages in a day. I literally sent out just message after message after message over the course of like 3 days. 750 messages asking people on my list for one piece of advice that they have for me to turn my life and business around. And in exchange for that piece of advice, I will audit your Facebook ad account for free and tell you what you could change or improve, or anything that you can launch in the interim to get you some results. That's all I did. 750 messages. I had 77 replies, and which gave me an idea of who my real friends were, right? Because I'm like, only 77 people really care. And these 77 people allowed me to do the audits. I did all of the audits in 3 days. I stayed up probably 20-hour days for 3 days, just banging out all these audits. I was dead tired, man, but I had to do it. And did all these audits. And out of those 77 audits, I had 7 people who wanted to do ad management at $1,500 a piece in 3 days. And I only had a week to pay my rent and my car before I was evicted and had my car taken away. Jeez. That was the true turning point. I was desperate, so I was okay with taking anything. Now, of course, that's something I learned later, that desperation just leads to people who are willing to take advantage of you because they know that you're just trying to get something. So they'll give you the bare minimum so that you have something, but you really don't know what they're really wanting until you start the project. So I was taking all these different clients and going, yes, business is back and everything's rolling. And 5 of those 7 just were a pure headache. But it was a learning experience that I needed to have.
Sure.
And it gave me enough of a, wherewithal, at least enough of a vision to sort of recalculate where I want to go with this whole thing. But it gave me a starting point. And so I tell people, I've been in business for 10 plus years. I'd say my business didn't really start until 4 years ago, because that's when things finally clicked.
I love that. I hope a lot of you guys just resonated with that. It definitely did with me. And thank you for getting really vulnerable here. This is what I love. It's like you're able to have David Schloss in your living room right now, holding you by the hand, guiding you, giving you all this advice. It's going to give you an upper hand on all these other entrepreneurs. A lot of people could be here right now in EA, and you guys are the ones that made it and that are watching this. And I feel like there are a lot of landmines that we're going to cover here in this mastermind that you can't avoid, and learning from David here on these stories. So for example, I thought it was really good that, you had this make or break it attitude from the very beginning. Some of you guys are trying to find your first clients, or you're trying to scale your agency, and you're not doing everything that you could. You're not doing everything that it takes to be successful. And it seems like that was the turning point. That was when it became serious for you, is when you messaged 750 people on Facebook. So have you ever had to fire a client before?
Yeah. So my first real experience of firing a client occurred 3 months after that whole scenario. They were paying $1,500 a month, and I'm very good at promoting webinars, right? It doesn't matter the industry. I seem to just understand how to promote webinars. And this individual was doing a big launch. So there were webinars every 2 days. And this is back when live webinars, people would show up all the time. We're talking 50, 60, 70% of the people would show up. And this was a massive launch. We're talking, tens of thousands of people per day were going to this landing page, signing up to, to opt in, get some gifts, and then get onto a webinar. They had about 5 or 6 webinars in a 2-week period. And I had to set up all the campaigns in advance. And I said, hey, if we get all this done in enough time, I can have everything mapped out 2 weeks prior to when the first webinar starts. That way we could set up retargeting and have everything in place, and it'll be stress-free. for all of us. Of course, I was just projecting what I wanted. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean I got it. And so I was like, it'd be great to just have everything. Didn't happen. What happened was I got all the assets I needed the day the launch started. So I had to launch 6 different webinar campaigns with all the pixels and all the audiences and making sure everything was segmented out and sequenced correctly the day before the webinar went live. And I was on that campaign probably about 8 hours. So like an entire workday, just one account doing this whole thing. And it made me realize, like, I don't like working with people who they don't value my own calendar. You know what I mean? They were looking at theirs and it worked for them. They didn't care if it worked for me. They were just doing it on their own time. And we had plenty of time in between to get this done. Weeks upon weeks to get this done. But they waited till the last minute to get me what I needed. They took care of everything that they needed to do, and they took care of themselves, don't get me wrong. But when you're doing an ad campaign that can make you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, if you set it up correctly, that's one of the things that I would consider to be a priority. And they just completely neglected it until the day before something had to go live. And so it put a lot of stress on me, put a massive headache on me. And I had to do this sequentially throughout the week just to make sure everything was set up. And once the launch was done, they were all excited. We made hundreds of thousands of dollars in like a 2-week period. Everyone's like gung ho. I made $1,500. It was the most stressful $1,500 I ever made. And I just said, look, for the amount of work you made me do in 2 weeks, that if you gave this to me 4 weeks ago wouldn't have been this bad, I'd be excited to do the next one. But quite honestly, this is not how I operate, and I'd prefer to give you someone else who may be willing to do the work for you in this capacity. I literally told my buddy, you can go run their ads now. This is what they're paying me. I don't want it anymore. And they were extremely shocked because I made them like 300 something grand just from the ads in 2 weeks. I made $1,500. That also made me go, what the hell did I just do? Like, I didn't negotiate anything really. I was just doing flat retainer. And so I had multiple points of shock. I didn't make much for what I did in terms of work. And I stressed myself out, and they weren't the ideal client. So that was enough for me to go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sorry this didn't work in the way you wanted it to, but I have someone who can help you out and replace me effortlessly. It'll take only a couple days. And so I never left them hanging, but I also told them, like, I just can't work this way.
It's a really mature way to take it too. You know, it's not that, you know, you went and, you know, ruined or burned that bridge. You know, you still made it very, you know, hey, I'm not cool with this. You held your standard. And then you also did good by somebody else and giving them the business and not leaving anybody hanging, not leaving, you know, the client hanging. You also, you know, repaired that relationship. And then for yourself, like, you did take care of yourself first, which is a great rule in business. So I don't know. I feel like that was probably perfectly done.
Yeah. I mean, my buddy was making some money from the project now. He was excited, right? He was like, this is awesome. Thank you so much. I had this massive weight lifted off my shoulders. I felt amazing after it was done. And my clients appreciated my honesty and the fact that I replaced myself so they didn't have to go do the work. And the fact that I edified my friend and said, look, he's great. Now, he's not better than me, but he's still great. Like, I always tell people, like, I'm never going to say someone's better than me, but I will say that they're as good, right? Yeah. And I kept that humor. I kept that personality with them because I wasn't just going, hey, screw you, I'm out. Mm-hmm. I treat everyone with respect. I would assume the same to me too. Like, if you're talking to me, I assume respect too. And so I treated them with that respect. I gave them what they needed to keep going because I didn't want to disrupt their business. Because I look at it from both sides. What if they did that to me? Yeah, I wouldn't have appreciated that. I probably would have acted out and said all sorts of things that aren't me, right? But instead, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a good businessman here. I'm going to replace myself. I'm going to give him the tools he needs to be successful. I'm going to give them the tools they need to be successful. And we'll all just move on. And I'm still friends with those guys. You know, it was just at the time, it wasn't right for me.
And I'm sure they referred you even after this point.
They've sent me like 5 clients from that experience, just from the fact that it's always in the emails that he's respectful, he gets the job done, and he gets results, right? It's always in those referral emails that they send out. And I deeply appreciate it. And I just hold myself to a high standard. I treat my clients like royalty because they are. They're giving you money. Do the job. be nice. And when you have to be mean, but do it with integrity and just be like, look, this is why things aren't the way I want it to be and you're not getting the results you want. But if you treat everyone with respect, you're going to be just fine. That's why my retention rate is so high in my business. It's because I set those ground rules from the very beginning. And
So let's go into that right there.
Yeah.
So from that learning experience, what are some of the systems in place that you have changed in your onboarding process to set expectations, and even in your contract to hold the expectations that you've set in the beginning? What are some of the systems and what do they look like?
Yeah, so we have a 3-phase process in the very beginning when someone gets onboarded, right? So typically what we do is, let's say someone agrees to terms. They haven't paid yet, they just agreed to terms. They're going to pay your ad management. You've agreed to a budget, at least a preliminary budget. I'm just going to use small numbers here. $2,000 a month ad management, 10 grand budget. Okay, that's where we're starting at. Cool. Numbers have been accepted. Everyone's cool on both sides. So what we do first is we schedule an onboarding call. That onboarding call is with me. It's just me. Now, for people who have big agencies, they're probably thinking, why would you still put yourself in that situation? Well, because I like talking to my clients. It sets the rules with them. They know they're talking to the face of the company, right? There's no BS. This is what you're going to get. It's coming from me. And so we set those expectations from the very beginning. And on that onboarding call, we're getting everything from getting connected to the fan page, connected to the ad account, get your audiences updated in the account if you have any. Do you have lookalikes? Yes or no? If not, we'll create them for you. Have you created engagement audience? Like anything that's basic information within the account, we get that all set up first. And then the next part of that conversation, and this is all done within 30 to 45 minutes, we start talking about the core customer. What's the ideal customer for you? How much are they worth to you? What's your average CPA to acquire this customer? Do you even have a CPA? Right? Because some people don't know. They have no idea how much it costs to acquire a customer.
Yeah, you ask a chiropractor, they have no idea what their cost per acquisition is.
Zero. And if any chiropractor knows their CPA, they've worked with a marketer already and they weren't happy with that marketer, right? Because they had to figure that information out. And so we get all that information that we can. CPA, CPL, if they have it. Who's the ideal customer for you? Where's their average age? What gender? We don't ask them about what are they interested in, things like that. That's our job. We're just trying to learn more about the customer. Do you get a lot of foot traffic? Do you get a lot of online traffic? Where are they coming from? Do you have a lot of lead pages out there? Are they just buying organically from your site? Do you have a podcast? We're wanting to find out more about the business. And this is all done within 30 to 45 minutes. And what I'm doing is writing down key points within the conversation. I'm not writing out everything word for word. If they have a podcast, I'll just write yes. Podcast, yes. Because then we know, my team, they know to go to the podcast, see how many episodes there are, and then we start to ask them, hey, do you have Google Analytics on your site? If so, can we get a report? Because then we're going to start cross-referencing the episodes that are getting the traffic. Like we start digging into the data during that first week. So the onboarding call is to just ask questions. That's all it is.
Yep.
Then the second
Do you
phase,
have like a spreadsheet or a checklist that you have been using to follow that program now at this point?
Yeah. So in the beginning, we still have a checklist, but I mean, I've done these calls so many times that I know I don't even need the checklist anymore. Right. But we have a checklist in the business where we ask, it's usually around like 30 questions or so that we go through one by one. You know, do you have this? Yes or no? You know, do you have this? Yes or no? And a lot of it's yes or no. And then we start to dig deeper after they answer all the ones with a yes. Right. So it's, if let's say they have a podcast, a blog, and they have a YouTube channel, we'll start to ask them like, what videos have had the most success? Which ones have gotten the most views? Have any of them led to getting you customers or clients or patients and things of that nature? Right. So we just have preliminary questions before we dig deeper. And so all of this is mapped out. I mean, no joke. I just take out a notepad and I just start writing because in that moment, I don't want to be typing. I just want to write quick notes. And it's also a distraction. When my clients hear me typing, they slow down. And when my clients don't hear it, when they don't hear anything, I'm just writing, they seem to speed up because that's the whole thing. This game is about speed. I don't want to be on calls for 2 hours with one person. I want to have 4 calls in 2 hours. You know, I want to knock these out so I can go build some things. And so this call is all about efficiency and being very effective. And so that's why I ask a lot of yes/no questions because then it's very easy for me to write down. And
I know a lot of you guys here have seen our consultation cheat sheet. It's basically a guide that I've printed out here, which is really simple, and it'll give you all the questions that you could ask. This is what I used to use in my consultation, so not quite my onboarding. But if you guys are newer and you haven't done as many consultation calls or onboarding calls as David, it might be good to print out something that you can follow almost as a guide or a script.
Yeah, I would highly suggest getting that consultation cheat sheet. As someone who has seen it and actually been through it, like 95% of what we ask is in that sheet, right? So you might as well just go ahead and get that if you don't already have it and print it out. That's for sure.
Cool. All right. So you have gotten a lot of information from the client.
Yep.
Now it's time to kind of jump into their ad manager. Where do you start with that? Do you start with strategy? Do you start thinking like the mediums? What's kind of that route of strategy?
So that's phase 2, right? So phase 2 then becomes, which network do we start with? Now, just so everyone knows, we focus on Facebook and Instagram for 95% of our clients. There's probably 1 or 2, maybe 3, where YouTube was their number 1, and then Facebook and Instagram were their number 2 and 3. Very rare that happens because people know me specifically for Facebook and Instagram. Okay. So just want to point that out. So when people come to us, we look at, we go through the onboarding, and then in phase 2, with all the information they've given us, we then see, is Facebook and Instagram the right place to start? Because what we'll find is if they had pre-existing data in their account, great. We can work with that. We'll stick to our guns and say, all right, let's start with Facebook and Instagram and start doing the audience research. We'll get creative mapped out. So I have designers on my team, only 2, that go in there based off the data that I supplied from that onboarding call. And then when we're getting, let's say, funnel links or website links and things of that nature, they are the ones who are coming up with the creative for the campaign, right? That's why we ask for, can I have all your funnel links? If they have 5 funnels, we want every link in the funnel, because my designers have been taught now through the process of evolution in our business that we need ads for every step of the process, from the opt-in page all the way down to the thank you page when they buy. And it could be 5 pages deep, 10 pages, doesn't matter. And so their entire job is to go through the funnel and start coming up with the creative, while I and the research team are going through and finding interest targets. Like I said, if they have customer audiences or anything in there, we start building all the lookalikes. We'll get the engagement audiences built. What we're really doing is just compiling all the audience data that we can, revolved around the offers that they have. And that's all phase 2 is. Audience research, building creative, and having everything asset-wise built out so that we can move into phase 3, which is deployment. And one thing I'll mention is this. Phase 1 has the most client interaction. We want as much info as possible. We're sending emails back and forth, so on and so forth. Phase 2, we don't ask anything. It's all us. It's up to us to put this plan together. Phase 3, we make 1 point of contact with the client, and it's to say your ads are live. And so phase 3 is just deployment. It's getting the ads out there, setting up the sequence. Here's ads for the opt-in. Here's ads for the sales page. Here's ads for retargeting anyone who's hit the cart. All that stuff is already set up, and that's phase 3. And the thing is, phase 3 could be multiple steps. Like, we don't have to do it all at once. We could just launch the front end. We could launch the front end and maybe, the middle of the funnel, but we don't have to launch the whole thing. But the only time we talk to the client in phase 3 is to let them know the ads are live. And so it has allowed us to be super efficient in getting things out there, because there are some people who want to know every little thing happening throughout the process, and that slows down your deployment process dramatically. And we set that guideline on the first call, phase 1, that this is how we operate. And we tell them, here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And they stick by those rules. And we tell them, if you can't follow this guideline, we don't work together. And if they say, okay, well, it's not going to work for us, I say, that's too bad. Then we're not going to continue. This call's over. Because we work in the way we want to work. We decide if we're going to work with you. As much as the client is saying, oh, I'm the one paying you, it's like, that's cool. I can still decide to say, no, I don't want your money. Because without me, you don't have ads. And so we set that precedent of, this is a 2-way communication, but we are still making that decision at the very end of when this is ready to go. We don't need you to micromanage. And so that's a big key point for efficiency, is set that guideline of how you work so that the client follows you and you're not having to follow the client and chase them all the time for stuff. Is they have to cater to what you need so you could be the most proficient to get them the result they want. And so it's just a simple 3-phase process. And we've dialed this in for the last 4 years. It didn't work like this in the first year. I'll guarantee you that. It was a lot of hit and miss, just trying to get people to understand, like, this is how I work and this is what I need. A lot of back and forth. But then we started to set up, we'll send out a sheet to someone that says, here's how to add us to a Facebook fan page. You've seen it. How to add us to an ad account, how to make sure your audiences are loaded. Like, it's all step by step. So I don't have to walk them through it. It's all on a sheet. So it saves us time. So anything that's very
awesome.
simple, anything that's simple enough for an average Joe or even the CEO, if they want to jump in there and set you up, we have it. But there's still only parts where we have to make
So
a short.
I have a question about phase 2, and this is where you start to develop the creative in the campaign, correct?
Yep.
So let's say you're doing a campaign for a dentist, and you want to have, the awareness campaign, the consideration campaign, and finally they come in for an appointment. Do you have to get anything from them, such as, hey, do you have any video? Do you have only photos? What do you have to get from them for your creative to actually work well?
Yeah.
Do you have a checklist for that?
We only ask for a couple things. And we tend to go into most campaigns assuming the client has nothing. And we do that on purpose, because then it gives our designers the ability to create whatever they feel is necessary for the funnel, right? They can just go ahead and start working. But in some cases, we'll get a dentist who's very active in creating video, or very active in, taking pictures of the office, or, maybe they've had team parties and everyone's in a picture, and, things of that nature, right? We will request that. Doesn't mean we're going to use it.
Yeah.
Right. Because there are some people who are phenomenal on video, and we're just like, okay, this is great. We're going to give you a script and you just go through it. Right. Because they will do exactly what we need and the way we want it to be.
Yeah.
And you have others who say they make great video, and you watch it and you go, this is not going to work. Right. This is not going to be used at all. And so we'll take it. Doesn't mean we're going to use it. But when it comes to the imagery, we could work with that, right? So you could send us a whole folder through Google Drive or Dropbox. And once again, we have instructions on how to do that too for everybody. And they input it in one of those two places and they send it to us. And then we decide, I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, I like this, this, and this, but it's not my decision. I'm just giving some, heads up on my feedback on what I feel is some good fits for the creative. But I give my creative team the power to decide on what they feel is best for the campaign. Because if I never allowed them to, go to their fullest potential and make those decisions, I would be micromanaging. So I let them take that whole folder of assets and they decide which ones work best for their creative needs. And then they send it back to myself and the ad managers, and we look at it and we go, okay, this is what we have to work with.
Cool.
Now, side note, and Austin, you know this too, we don't necessarily use custom creative for everything. There are times where we've used stock photos that represent something in a funnel, and they work just as well as a custom photo or a custom image that was created by the designer. And so we look at both the design team creating what they feel works best for the campaign, and then myself and the ad managers will look at, any sort of these stock photo sites and find stuff that is relatively close to what's being talked about in the funnel, related imagery. And we'll split test custom versus stock all the time. And so it allows us to really get creative and show the client, like, we're looking at all angles here. We use stock video and stock photo. We use custom video and custom photos. Like, we try everything because we're in this to get an end result of getting you more customers and clients. So we have to try everything. And so we try to do everything ourselves, assuming there's nothing there. But if they have something to provide, we'll take it.
So I think this is an appropriate time for me to share a story of a client that went horribly wrong. Actually went horribly right, and then it went horribly wrong for me and my team because we over-delivered. We did way too good of a job that we ended up getting ourselves replaced by an in-house team. And because I didn't have a contract in place, this is back in the days of 6K when, we kind of thought a contract would slow down the sales process. It would, I'd be able to hop on a phone call, get them locked in, say, great, send over the check. And then I wouldn't even have to touch the contract because I know they're pretty much locked in, and we go month to month because that's an easier sell. But what ended up happening for one of my first clients is we had $1,500 management cost and a $3,000 budget for month one. And this is a brand new e-commerce product that was super trendy and cool. And we got out before their Kickstarter competitor was able to release. And so he had manufacturing supplies out in China. And so we were able to get to market first and kind of take a hold on it. It was such a high demand product that the ad creatives all went viral. We had a video and a photo that just really killed it with only $3,000 in ad spend, which was awesome. And we turned $3,000 into almost $30,000, 28,000 something within 30 days. And after that, it continued on. But on the 30th day, I get a call from the CEO of the company. He goes, Austin, this is awesome. Thank you so much for getting us here and getting us up and going. Because of the growth of the company, we're going to end up hiring a whole creative team to come in and start managing the campaigns that you've created. So, hey, thanks so much, but this will be the last time we need your service. And I was totally thrown off. It really sunk in, and it hit me hard because I thought this was going to be a year-long contract. I felt like, we just did so good for this client that they're going to be around forever. Like the lifetime value on this is huge. And we didn't even make it 2 months. And so that really stunk. And I remember going into the 6K Success Facebook group and kind of ranting about this, and ended up contacting my contractor, and he was pissed because he had just given away all of the campaigns he was planning on running over the next couple months, just spilling it all out there, saying, this is the campaign I think is going to do really good next, and like with the expectation that he was going to run these things. And so if you've watched Silicon Valley, they basically got brain raped. Like you come in with the whiteboard, you show the investors exactly your plan, and all of a sudden they start taking photos and they say, great, thanks so much. We're going to build this now. Yep. And so that was a huge learning lesson for me. One, get contracts in, but two, there's a pretty big discrepancy of the copyright issue between who owns what at the end of the day. I was talking, I graduated with a degree in online marketing, and my teacher was a professor, but not only that, she also owned a huge agency in Atlanta that had clients like Barbie and Sunglass Hut. And I asked her this, like, what should I do in this scenario? And she's like, well, at the end of the day, the company should own the creative. At the end of the day, they are, you're hired on by them to give them a final product. And it is up to you and your team to deliver on, these are your deliverables. That should have all been spelled out in your contract. And I'm like, wait, but in my mind, it's like you don't get to use the phone if you don't pay for it every month, right? Like this is a service and not a product. And she, it kind of went back and forth, and in 6K, it was a huge argument as well. Some people, when we ended up taking down the campaign before, we were departed, took down all the things that were ours. We ended up leaving them, sending them reports of all the analytics so they could still use that for investors. If I could go back now, I probably would have maintained that relationship and just given them the campaign and said, you know what, like, I'm really sorry that this isn't going to work out. My bad. I should have put a contract in place to protect myself. But I'm curious from you. How do you view this topic? It could go either way. I've heard great arguments on either side. So in your opinion, who owns the creative that you guys create for the client?
So when it comes to banner design, we let the client keep it. And the reason we do that is because, one, it's not that big of a headache for us to recreate any design that we have with the client because we keep copies of everything. We have the raw files and so on and so forth, right? And quite honestly, what we know is that the minute we turn off a campaign with a client that's no longer working with us, it doesn't mean they're just going to be able to turn it back on and it works the same. We know this, Austin. We've seen it, right? You can have a campaign that's done great for 3 months, you switch it back on, and it's not working at all, right? So go ahead, keep the creative. You still have to learn how to run ads, right? You still have to figure it out. So go try and hire some people who say they're great at it and see what happens. Because I've even seen other ad managers try to reuse our creative, and it doesn't work out because everyone has their own unique methodology to creating advertising on Facebook, Instagram, you name it. So with banners, go ahead. It's all yours. Now, if we create a video, that's ours. We spend a lot of money We put scripting involved. We had people shoot it. Like, we're creating that video for you. That is our video. And we
Even if
put an
they pay
agreement
for it,
together.
when you do a video, do you have them pay for the creative process of that video?
It's a part of the agreement.
Okay.
The budget involves that you are paying us to go create that video for you. Right? So if we go ahead and create
Not
that video.
included in your retainer, right?
Yeah. It's a part of the retainer.
It is. Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. I would have thought that would be, like, for example, with that client, we let them keep the video that we hired a contracted team to record and shoot for them. That was extra on top of the 1,500.
Yeah, we've actually gotten it to the point where if we have to go above and beyond to make a video for you, we have to hire the videographers. We got to do the shoot. We got to get people to be involved in it. We're going to keep that video because that's a lot of extra time that we had to take to help you. Now, we could have told you how to do all this. We could have given you all of our resources, but you opted to have us do it. So we're going to keep the video because we spent all that time and energy creating it. And we have a whole form and contract in place of how that works. But if the client decides like they want to create a video ad campaign and they go and create the video, that's obviously theirs. That's nothing involved with us. We're just running the campaign. And that's the only type of creative that we will have that little back and forth with is with video because we've just put so much extra time into it. But that's why we use a lot of stock video when we're creating these video ads for our clients because we just go through a library, pick all the ones we want, script it out, piece it together, it's done. Whereas if they want something more customized, we have to go get some actors. We got to get, a couple of videographers involved, multi-camera. Like there's all sorts of extra stuff involved. It becomes a real commercial.
Yeah.
It's a completely different process. So it really just depends on what the client's looking for. I have no problem letting you keep the banners. Go for it.
Cool. Awesome. The way I got around it personally is, after that point, here's always how I did it was minimum of a 3-month contract. Mm-hmm. At the end of 3 months, you can keep the creative. If you cancel before the 3 months, you can buy the creative and straight off of me to continue using that on your own. So this is the funny thing about business is there's no true rules. You make up your own rules. When people work with you, they have to agree to those rules to, work with you. Yeah. So, I don't know if there's a right answer. I would probably say start using contracts if you're not already. David, what would a sample contract look like for you just in terms of, payment, timeline, things like that?
Yeah. So I have like a really bare bones standard service agreement that I use for a lot of my, I'll just call them lower ticket clients, where it's outlining timeline, 3 months. This is what you're paying per month. Here's what's involved in it. Here's who owns the creatives. We actually put in the agreement that they own the creative that we put together during that 3-month agreement. And we do have the option to delete the creative from their account if they cancel before the 3 months. So just like how you said they could buy off the creative, we take it to the extreme and we just say, we just delete it. We delete it from your account. Like you can't even buy it. It's gone. And so, we make that very clear as to who owns the assets up to the point of that 3-month mark. And so all it's really outlining is, like I said, timeline, the price, who owns what, and what we're going to deliver. And we put all the deliverables in there, what we're going to be doing for them, pixel setup, ad account setup if needed, fan page setup if needed. And then we also add what they need to accomplish, creating content for the fan page at least once a week. Like we give them some stuff they have to fulfill too. And then it's just a sign and date. And we do this all through DocuSign. We'll pay, $30 a month to make sure that everything's done digitally. And we're good to go. And we keep everything hubbed in there. Make it really simple.
Awesome. And do you use like DocuSign or, Wicked Reports or anything like that?
Yeah. So DocuSign we use for the digital signatures. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the reporting, I've tried a couple of dashboards and everything that automatically pull reports from Facebook and try to make them all appealing. Doesn't always pull the information that we want. And so what we find is our clients, though they would appreciate a nicely designed PDF with graphs and everything, they don't need that. What they really just want to know is how much did we spend? How many clicks did we get? How many leads did we get? And what was the revenue and profit? So we actually have a templated email with all that information because we found through our own testing that our clients either want a phone call or an email with that same information. They don't want a report. They want to hear it from you. That's it. Yeah. So I've actually saved I don't know, let's just say 10 to 15 minutes a report that most people are creating for their clients. My clients just want to hear it from me. Hey, campaign's doing great. We spent $5,000. We made 20. Here's what the clicks are. Here's what the leads are. This is what we're doing next week. That's all they want to know.
Mm.
And they let us do our thing. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I really don't want to have to do anything extra that a client will not read or watch, right? So we only create what we feel that client really wants to see from us. So if someone says, I'd really love to have a video update from you every week, we put it on the agenda. 5-minute screencast video every Friday sent to client A, right? We'll find that a different client will say, can I have a bi-weekly report? Okay, cool. We put that in the agenda. Bi-weekly report sent to client B, right? And by the way, we use Asana for project management.
Yes, I love Asana.
Yeah, we outline everything in Asana. We put timelines, recurring timelines, one-offs. My team's goals are even in there. Like my own personal goals are in there. What the milestones are for the individual employees of the company. I'll get on that in a second because that's how I've kept my clients and my employees on board too. But we keep everything in Asana, and so anytime a contract comes through and it's signed in DocuSign, we take a copy of that and we put it in a encrypted Dropbox. Dropbox for Business. It's an encrypted folder. Everything is outlined by these are forms for the business. Client contracts, reference material, maybe some videos that we've created. So I have a training library specifically for my team. Anyone who's doing administrative work, this is your folder. If you're an ads manager, this is your folder. If you're accounting, this is your folder, right? So each department has its own folder of library videos just for them. And then in Asana, I have reference links to everything. So we have a whole training project, and then I'll say, project accounting, project ad managers, project administrative, and then it's like reference links to everything. So this has taken me a while to build. This isn't something I just did in a week, right? This is over time I've learned what my team needs to see and hear from me to be efficient.
Yep.
And so when someone told me, hey, I don't remember how to do a website conversion campaign, and then I started to hear it 2, 3, 4 times, I just realized, I need to go create a video. I just need to do it one time, record the process, and do it with the most difficult campaign I can. That way they could see how I think, how I put this all together, what's the most detailed website conversion campaign I can create. Because then they know what a bare bones campaign would look like, right? If you're already doing something that's really extreme, then they know that only maybe 1/10 of that is what they really need to create, right? So I create those videos, put it in the Dropbox, keep a backup in Google Drive, and they have places to reference all that material. So whenever they need to figure out how to do something, it's all there.
I love that. And by the way, guys, this is what we do here in EA and Proof as well. We call them playbooks. So we have 3 files. Basically, we have the systems, references, and codes, and all these linked together, and all the templates that come together. It makes life really easy. And so whenever somebody asks me, for the blog post template, I just say, hey, reference, 28, and they can go and their spreadsheet and click on 28, and they know exactly how to make a new blog post step by step. So, okay, let's look at like the 80-20 of systems. So what would the 80-20 right now, what is the 20% of systems that everybody needs to basically be there? Not all the way there. They're not perfect, but they're most of the way there.
What I find, and this might be shocking to a lot of people, but with an agency, what I find is that people just neglect their accounting to the extreme. Like they just don't look at their numbers to the extent that I do. And they need to not put 80% of their time into building out the systems. They really only need about 20%, right? Because as much as you are spending your client's money, you're also spending your own. You got people you got to take care of. You got yourself, right? You got some expenses and software and things of that nature. And I feel like people leave accounting to the absolute last thing to take care of. They'll do administrative, they'll do ad management, they'll do milestones, you can get bonuses, but then they forget I got to pay for all this stuff.
Yep.
And they leave accounting for last. And then when it gets to tax season, they got to find that box of receipts that they had from the beginning of the year and somehow digitize them and send them to their accountant that they just hired. I take care of that first because I've already assumed that I'm going to make a bunch of money. So when I jump into a new business, we get our accounting set up immediately. And we focus on, Invoicing, we have a whole video section on how to invoice through PayPal, how to invoice in other platforms if it's a different type of client, like how to invoice through our bank so that the client can get our wire and ACH info and wire that money over. We have videos on all that. And so we decided that that 20% is going to be getting all the accounting in order, because when your business scales, you won't be able to have that spreadsheet with all those different expenses you have. You're going to have to hire someone to go through these things, input them into QuickBooks, integrate it with your accounts, and make sure that everything is sent to the IRS on time. Yep. So we put a lot of effort into building out the systems for that, so that when we do scale to the moon, everything's already taken care of.
I love that. All there. And that's what, what we hired a guy here in town named Adam Rundle, and he was actually one of the recent masterclasses here in EA on how to set up your business financially. Totally recommend anybody that is already running and making money in their business to watch that masterclass first, talking about QuickBooks, talking about how to pay yourself out of your business. So when the client hands you a check, that's not your income, right? I think that's a lot of people's mistakes. Even if you're one guy running some ads, you don't have a whole team yet, that's not your personal income. That's the business revenue. And then you got to trickle it down from there. Okay, cool. So let's jump into what would be the last step, I guess, hiring and duplicating yourself, because that's the system. The system allows you to grow. And I think with the agency model, the most important thing you need to do to grow is talent. This is a talent-based industry, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And I'll say this, is that a lot of the people that I hired for my business, they did not have pre-existing experience with Facebook ads or Instagram. I do it a little differently. What I've done is I've hired people who are completely new to Facebook and Instagram, but are creative and also are quick learners. How do I know they're quick learners? I have an entire quiz put together that when they're going through Facebook and Instagram, they have to fill in the questions, right? And so I'll say, where do you find the ads manager if you're in Power Editor? And the one who goes, well, Power Editor is ads manager. I'm like, oh, they're paying attention, right? They're already seeing things that most people would neglect and say, I don't even know what you're talking about. So we put this quiz together when we bring on new people, or I should say going through an initial 3-month test period with them. And they are learning about each platform from the very beginning. It's almost like going through the Facebook blueprint that's on their website. You're doing basic things, how to set up an ad, how to set up an account, even how to add your credit card to the account. I want them to learn everything like it's a brand new world. And the reason for that is because when I've hired people who had pre-existing experience with Facebook and Instagram, is they're using the systems that they're aware of from other people as an excuse to go use it in mine. But the way I do things is completely different. So I don't want them to use a different system they had from a previous job. I want them to use mine. And it becomes my experience becomes a battle of whose system is the right one. Is it the one that they're aware of and they've already done for several years, or is it mine? It's really not their decision. It's my business. I want you to run it this way. Yeah. And so I just decided to hire new people who had no experience at all and just train them to be masters at this. And so I take newbies and beginners, and I take them through a 3-month process to a point where by the end of that 3 months, I feel comfortable to give them 5 to 10 accounts and not have to micromanage. But in the initial 3-month period,
which right there, 5 to 10 accounts per person to manage, max, right?
Max.
That's a lot of work for one person. I remember when I had 5 clients, I felt pretty bogged down. Now they're mostly on the back end, right? You'd still be talking with them.
Yeah, I'm still involved in sort of just checking in on the accounts. And Austin, just a key thing to throw in there. Let's say I give you 5 accounts to manage, right? They're not $100,000 accounts. They're not 5 $100,000 accounts. Because if they were, I would tell you that they all have a similar campaign setup. So if I sent you 5 accounts, the one thing that you have to be aware of is these are 5 auto webinar accounts, and they all run top of the hour webinars, and they all have the same funnel. So I'm basically giving you 5 accounts with very similar setups, maybe in the same industry or varying industries, but like the subject is very close together. So that way you're not having to utilize a lot of brain power trying to figure out every single account. You're actually doing a lot of the same thing across 5 accounts, but you're only having to change subtle things like copy or the creative, or maybe you simply just have to understand a little more about an industry than you would, let's say, account number 1 or 2. right? Because you can have 2 or 3 clients in real estate, and in my case, I work with a lot of like infopreneurs, people who launch courses and training. So you
Yeah.
can have 3 people who are infopreneurs. One teaches wholesale, one teaches investing in apartment buildings, and another one teaches how to buy commercial. They're all different forms of real estate, but they all have the same funnel. So it's going to be very easy for that ad manager to understand what needs to be deployed for all 3 of those accounts, especially since they're so closely related. And so I make sure that when I divide up those accounts to my ad managers, I give them as much similarity as I can because it makes it easy for them. Before I hired my first person, I had 12 accounts that I was managing by myself, and 7 of them were all live webinars. So all I had to do was be very good with time management, and I was able to manage those 7 with no problem. It was the other 5 that I started to have headaches because they were different funnel types. They needed all custom creatives. They were in completely different industries, and that's when I started to hit all sorts of barriers. Couldn't figure things out, couldn't get them out on time. And then that's when I realized, oh, I have to do this with my new employees as well. I have to get them integrated with certain types of funnels, certain types of ad creative, certain deployment setups, because then if I give them similar setups across multiple accounts, they'll get things done faster.
Yep.
And so, if I give you 5 accounts, in theory, if they're all similar, shouldn't take you more than an hour per account. Max. It really shouldn't. And I've timed myself numerous times to make sure that I'm giving them adequate time to go through these accounts.
Good.
So yeah, 5 to 10 max.
So with that, there's this idea that of being a generalist versus niching down, especially when it comes to Facebook advertising. A lot of your brain share, trying to figure out just this stuff, not only knowing your skill, but knowing about an industry can be tough in itself alone. So how did you build a successful generalist company? You have info, you have real estate, you have a ton of different industries. Do you view them as almost verticals in a business that you maybe focus on one kind of niche for a little while? Once you have systemized that, you move to the next one, or are they just coming in kind of random and you figure it out as you go?
Well, I had the sort of like randomization of clients in the beginning, which is why I became so aware of different industries and niches from day one, right? So when I first tackled SEO and video marketing, I wasn't just going after dentists or chiropractors or surgeons. I took everything. I took everything because I wanted to find the industries that I would be the most successful. So it was like a trial and error, right? I would take on 10 clients in 10 different industries. 5 of them would be fantastic. The other 5 wouldn't. And I'd go, okay, if these 5 I'm amazing, I want to go find more people in these industries, right? And so I did that similar thing with the advertising side. When I jumped all in with Facebook, I knew that the majority of the people in my friends list, the people that I knew, were internet marketers. They didn't have a niche specifically that they were a marketer in, but they taught people specific strategy around internet marketing, whether it was how to be a better traffic driver with Pinterest, or how to launch an e-commerce business, maybe how to do e-commerce with Shopify versus Amazon. So they were all different subjects, but they were all internet marketers at heart. So I knew that with these people, I could learn how to deliver different types of funnels in this one industry, right? So I worked with those internet marketers first. And as I learned how to deliver a high ticket funnel, auto webinar funnel, live webinar funnel, a SaaS funnel with a trial versus a SaaS funnel with a upfront monthly that's been 50% off. Like I started just working with all these different funnels. I then started looking at different industries and said, okay, where else can this high ticket funnel apply? Oh, it works with real estate investors. Great. Then I would start going after real estate investors. And then I would look at coaches and consultants. Then I would look at authors and speakers. And then I would be done with that. And I'd go, okay, I got 10 people already with high ticket funnels. Maybe I should move on to auto webinar. Who else can deliver an auto webinar funnel? On low ticket, who can deliver a high end ticket product with a auto webinar? So I'd start just gradually moving outward. But it wasn't just about the industry. I was looking at the funnel, because when I found funnels that I worked well with, I then started looking for more products that fit that same model and just keep expanding. That's why I have, out of the 45 clients on right now, somewhere between 20 and 25 run auto webinars. We have an entire process outlined on how to do auto webinar ads. And that's why that we can do that same process over and over and over. And I can give one ad manager 7 accounts with auto webinars because they'll understand how to deploy all of them efficiently.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. So let's talk about funnels and then we'll start wrapping it up here. But, okay. So with traffic and conversion, a lot of people think that they're one and the same, but they're totally different services. And a bad conversion funnel can make a traffic guy look bad, right? Like it just dies right there on the page.
Yeah,
and so that shouldn't reflect badly on you, but sometimes the client doesn't know any different. You know, so do you just take ownership on at least the lead capture page, or do you say, hey, you know what? It looks like your, e-commerce page or Shopify page really sucks. And if I send traffic here, it's just going to make me look bad. It's going to die right there on the page. Nobody's going to buy because I've done this for a while. I know that looks really bad. So for an extra blank, I'll include conversion as well. So I'll do 1,500 for traffic, 2,500 for conversion. Total, will be $4,000. And, then you have ad spend on top of that. How do you really structure a deal like this?
We do it a little different, right?
Okay.
And the reason why we do that a little different is this. Like, I am at heart a traffic guy, right? But that doesn't mean that I neglect conversion. It doesn't mean that I don't worry about conversion because I'm looking at funnels all day. I'm looking at sales pages all day. And so when we go into a project with a new client, I am looking at these funnels. Like we mentioned in phase 1, we're going through all their assets, collecting everything. When I'm taking that time to go through phase 2 and doing research and going through their funnel and everything like that, we'll send off notes to the client if we see anything that we believe they need to implement in the funnel before we launch ads. And I know that like when you and I were working together, I had sometimes some suggestions for you, which you went ahead and implemented, right? But it was just a suggestion, not a recommendation. Just, hey, if you want to include a split test here, that'd be a great idea. I think it'd work out well for the opt-in page, right? Or I'm going to split test a video versus this. And if we run this, I believe that this ad creative will do better than this one. So we're always looking at the conversion side, but it's more of a two-way street. It's the client and I working together to get this right. There's not someone on my team that I bring in and I say, your entire job is to just do conversion. We are a traffic agency. We do advertising. We focus on that. And we work with the client to get those conversions. And they have to have someone on their team who's going to work with us to get this all dialed in. And it's usually a developer or a programmer who can make all these changes for us on the fly and set up these split tests so we can just keep driving traffic. Right. And thankfully, I've built up a great reputation on getting the types of people that I want to work with where they tend to have their own tech teams, which is awesome because all I have to do is make a request and it's done in an instant. Oh, I want to have a split test with these 3 pages. This one has a yellow button, an orange button, and a blue button. And it's done in like 24 hours. I didn't have to touch a thing. They just go ahead and do it. And once again, it's all about setting that expectation. And so for us, we just want to focus on delivering the highest quality traffic we can for your offer. But we want to work with you on making sure that the people we deliver through your funnel are qualified. So we'll work with you on making changes to the funnel. And obviously we're getting that data, right? We're looking at front-end conversion, back-end conversion. Where was there a drop-off? Did people apply for your service but not make a phone call? So we need to work on the phone call follow-up, and we'll give suggestions on that. So we're not leaving the client hanging when it comes to their overall conversions through the funnel. We just simply don't go in there and make all the changes for them. That's not our job.
Which I want to maybe end on this one, I think would be good too, is there's 3 levels of consulting, right? So you have the first level, which is unpersonal, templatized. This would basically be coaching through videos, right? So that's still consulting, but you don't get one-on-one time. Second one would be, where you pay for somebody's time. You hop on a phone call, they give you advice. Maybe this is, for example, a lawyer or somebody like that. But you could also do this as a digital marketer. I've been paid by corporations. This one in Vegas hired me to build out a whole campaign across their LinkedIn, their Facebook, and their Twitter, and how to teach their sales team on how to get leads for casinos. So I didn't do any work, but I was hired by my hour to create a video, do a panel where they could ask me questions, and that was $250 a video, and that was an hour each of my time. So that's another way to scale. Or you have full on in done for you services, which is what most of us think of as digital marketing consulting. But you can do all 3. So essentially what you're doing here is you're doing the done for you service with traffic, and then you're kind of doing the consulting for, or like you're giving your time saying, hey, this is what you should do. I recommend doing this for conversion. Is that correct?
Right.
But you're not charging
Exactly.
them for that. It's just, included in your retainer.
Yeah, it's
But
a value
I
add.
totally believe that you could.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I do it as a value add because once they
yeah.
agree to work with us on the management side, like I said, I want to get them results because
Mhm.
I have great clients who stay on board. And if we get them results within that 3-month period, they don't leave. And I know the story that you mentioned about, getting sort of replaced by an in-house team because you set up all these systems. That's happened to me 3 times in the last couple of years. And that's fine because I also know that 2 of those companies came back to me 6 months later when that team that they hired didn't do the job that they were supposed to do. Right. So my whole thing is I'm giving you a service that I could be charging you $1,000 an hour for as part of your management fee. And that's a blessing because if I'm charging you $3,000 to run all this money and I'm giving you 5 hours for free of my consulting time, breaking down your funnel, telling you where to make changes, even mapping out in a screencast what you should change and how it should be done, like that's crazy. And that's why a lot of my clients just go, the amount of stuff you deliver without charging me for it is crazy. It's
It is
crazy.
true. I mean,
Yeah.
I totally felt that, when we hired you, it was personal, it was attentive. I totally recommend you 100%. So, man, I wish that we could talk about a lot more. I know that going into like white label agency stuff would be really exciting to talk about. Could you share maybe one piece of advice on how to start doing a white label agency?
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic that you could build in your business that can grow your client base dramatically if you do it right. So, key things you need to know about when you're doing a white label version of your agency. One, make sure all your systems are top notch because some of these referral partners could send you 20 clients in an instant. So you have to be prepared to take on all this additional work, right? So if you know that you're going to get a one referral partner that's going to send you 5 clients within the next 30 days, prepare yourself for it, whether it's hire a new person or at least say, hey, referral partner, could you spread out when these people come in? Like, can you send me 2 people week 1, 2 people week 2? Like, just work it out with them so that they can get the benefit of working with you and you signing up those clients, but then you don't go crazy when you get this influx of lead flow. The other thing to consider is that with your service offering, set the guidelines with that referral partner as to, are you the one doing all the communication with the client or are they doing all the communication? Now, what I do with my white label service is if you referred them to me, there's 2 ways we could do it. If you are going to keep all the client communication, I will lower the management fee. If I'm going to do all the communication, I'm increasing the management fee. Because you're about to send me a bunch of business of people that I personally don't know. I haven't had a conversation yet. You've set all the expectations, not me. So I'm going to need that extra time to set the relationship with the client. I'm going to charge you for it. Now, if you're going to do all that client relationship, I'll reduce it a little bit and I'll just do all the work. I'll send you the reports and you keep them happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you could structure your pricing, right? And you can create tiers and show people, if you get 3 clients, this is how much you get. You get 5, you get 10. That's the third part I'll say is set milestones for your referral partners. Because by doing that, it gives them a way to project what they want to make. So I created a spreadsheet for one of my referral partners and I showed them the progressive amount of money they would be making all the way up to about 20 clients. Here's how much you make with 1 client at this ad management fee. So all the ad management fees would be on one side and the amount of months or the amount of clients they would have signed up, it would be over the course of 12 months. And just showing them that forecast, he went absolutely crazy because he loved it. He's like, this is amazing. My goal is to get to 10 clients. Now, just so you guys know, if someone sends me 10 clients, without me doing much work, my agency would make anywhere between, on the low end, 20 grand a month to as high as somewhere around 50, 60, depending on the ad management, the budget involved. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have to go do any selling. He did all the selling. He sent them to me. We did all the agreements and here's your cut and here's mine.
Yep.
I didn't have to sell. And having that forecast built out for the referral partner, it keeps them motivated. Because in the beginning, everyone's motivated. They're like, yes, I'm going to make some, commission fees and, maybe I'll get something monthly or a big upfront. But if they don't see the potential, they're not going to go sell. So keep your systems in order. Make sure you set the guidelines. Once again, are you keeping the communication or am I doing all the communication? And create something that gets the referral partner excited. Create some sort of spreadsheet that could forecast their results if they signed X amount of clients. And you're good to go.
Cool. I love that. David, thank you so much for hopping on here today. If you guys want to reach out to work with David or you want to follow him, David, what is the best way for people to find you?
You can follow me on my personal profile on Facebook, facebook.com/Schlossy, SCHLOSSY. If you want to hit me up via email, you can send an email to david@rampify.com, rampify.com. And honestly, I'm on Facebook all day, so you might as well just send me a message there, send me a friend request. And even if you don't and you just send me a message, I check my other inbox, so you don't have to worry about me not seeing your message. So just hit me up there if you want to work together, get some consulting, or even just, want to find a way to hang out at the next event you're going to. Let me know. I'm around.
I love that. Let's get Schloss, guys. Awesome. Hey, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next masterclass.
Now, here are some interesting facts about the mastermind, which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success.